What's going on, y'all? Serious Bookworm is here. And I'm back to give y'all this book review of Zodiac. This was a book written by Robert Graysmith. He's also the author of Zodiac Unmasked, which I'm going to read in the near future. All right. In case y'all don't know about Zodiac, he was an unapprehended killer that went on the killer spree in the late 60s to, I would say, the late 70s, possibly. And this was in California. I can't remember the city or country right now. I think it was San Francisco or Vallejo or something like that. But if y'all remember the movie review I made, then you would know that I love movies based off of true events. So I decided to get this book right here, which tells about the Zodiac Killer. Now, as I read this book, it was more in descriptive details about what happened during those time periods. Keep in mind that the killer was never caught, you know what I mean? But he used to taunt the police with writing letters and sending them birthday cards, or not birthday cards, or Halloween cards, trying to give them clues and stuff like that. It became more interesting that the Zodiac Killer was doing this instead of, at least to me, it seems that people were more interested in the Zodiac Killer himself instead of the people that he killed. The part that gets me is that I'm a little obsessed with the situation myself, and I'm not saying in the sense of, I want to see the Zodiac Killer kill again. It's more of a situation that people were trying to solve this case of the Zodiac Killer, at least for what I was reading. It was close, but no cigar. You know what I mean? Like, it was more like he was almost caught, or he almost got, arrested, or something to that effect. But nothing ever really came out of it. And the crazy part, as I was reading this book, it was saying things like there was a man that Darlene Ferrin was talking to, but they never knew the name of the man. Or if they did, they didn't mention the name in the book. Now, it was back in 1969, Darlene Ferrin was killed and Mike Mageau was with her, and he got shot, but he survived. And he's one of the only surviving victims that saw Zodiac without a mask. Now, it's a crazy situation because after, I'm going to explain about the book, but not too much details. So after the killings occur, or the shooting occur of Darlene Ferrin and Mike Mageau that occurred on July 4th, 1969, he called the 911 emergency thing, and he simply said, I wanted to report a double murder. And he also said, if you go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway to the public park, you will find kids in a brown car. He was saying they were shot with a 9mm Luger. And he said, I also killed those kids last year. And he said, goodbye. Like it was just nothing to it. And he hung up the phone. I just was trying to figure out a few things, with that. It seems that the Zodiac Killer, whoever he was or is, was just excited to kill. As I read this book, it said that when it seems that the Zodiac Killer would get aroused when he kills. Not really obsessed, but although I'm kind of like really into the Zodiac Killer situation, it's still pretty creepy. To hear these victims got killed or some survive, things of that nature. And one thing that I noticed on the situation prior to Darlene Ferrin being killed, they was trying to find a situation where they can find out who the killer was, but they never figured it out. He basically called Darlene Ferrin's house the moment she was killed, and he called the parents and a couple other calls. So when I read this part, it tells me a couple of things. Darlene Ferrin know who the killer was. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure she know the guy, but I don't think she ever mentioned the name of the killer. You know what I'm saying? Or the guy that she was kind of hanging out with. And she said, her sister said before she was killed, she said that the Zodiac killer actually, or not the Zodiac killer, but the guy that she was afraid of actually killed someone, and it was never solved. So when I feel like the fact that she mentioned that he did kill someone, it was only a matter of time before Darlene Ferrin was killed too. They had a couple of other situations that occurred shortly after the murder. So the lady named Linda, you know, said that things escalate with drugs and stuff like that. This is what Linda said. She said the money put on the house, it came from whatever she was doing with this man in the white car. She said she was constantly, twice a week, taking her to the bank, Crocker Citizens on Georgia. And then people always ask, why was Mike Mageau wearing 3 pairs of pants and 3 shirts on a hot summer night? And Mike replied that he wore that much pants and stuff like that because he didn't want people to find out that he was really a skinny guy. I'm going to talk about the Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard. This situation occurred in Lake Berryessa in 1969. There was a situation that they was at the lake. Cecilia saw the Zodiac, but he had a mask on. He had like a costume and something like that. And then he forced Cecilia to tie Brian up with this rope. Brian was trying to figure out a way to get the gun, and he said, don't get any ideas, right? So he was getting tied up, Brian, and the Zodiac was pretty much planning to rob them. At least that's what Brian thought. Like, I was looking at his interview of Brian Hartnell because he survived. But Cecilia, she died a few days later, unfortunately, and she died from several stab wounds. The situation occurred, so Brian thought that they were just getting robbed, you know, but when he got tied up, he realized like, okay, something bad going to happen. And he told the killer that just stab me first. I'm chicken. I couldn't stand to see her stab or whatnot. And the hood figure said, I'll do just that. So the guy got to his knees and he started stabbing it on Brian's back. Brian said he just felt so lightheaded that he just stopped moving, figuring the killer would have stopped, which he did. When he got to Cecilia, he kept stabbing her and she was turning her back, you know, turning around on him, and he just kept stabbing her and stabbing her. They said he stabbed her with a 12-inch knife, and he wouldn't stop. It was like he just was so obsessed with it. It was a crazy situation. And like I said, after the killing or the stabbing occurred, Zodiac walked away from them and he wrote a sign on the door of their car saying the dates that he killed, or he claims that he killed, and stuff like that. And I mean, it was a horrific situation, man. I just couldn't believe a wicked person like that would go so obsessed with killing people. And then he also, you know, taunt the police in the midst of it. And then I explain another situation of Paul Stein, who was the cab driver. The cab driver was driving the Zodiac, or the guy, to an area, I think it was on Washington and Cherry. After they drove a few times, that's when he just all of a sudden shot Paul Stein on the right side of his head. And after he did that, that's when he ripped a shirt of Paul Stein. While he was doing all this, like wiping the seats of the car and stuff like that, while he was doing that, he walked away from the cab. And in the midst of him walking away from the cab, that's when someone called the police. And the police, okay, so this is something that really always gets me. Like, this was the time that the Zodiac killer could have actually got caught. So when he was walking away during the time, they said that it was a black male. It was a Negro male that they saw. When he was walking away, the cop came to that same guy, who was a white guy, by the way, and the cops asked him a few questions about, have you seen the shooting that occurred or something like that? The guy said, yeah, I saw him waving a gun somewhere going down that way, right? And that's when he walked away, and he never was found. Now they changed it to saying that it was a white male that walked away from the scene. Now this part always gets me, because I don't know where they got the fact that it was a Negro male that did this. I don't know where they could have got that information. I don't know who started that trend, which lasts for about 10-15 minutes tops. You know, in the midst of it, the killer walked away free, because he was a fat guy. He was a chubby guy. He wasn't a runner. You know, he was walking. He walked away, and then that's when he was never caught. Now, like I said, this was a situation that he was almost caught, but wasn't quite.